So welcome to the first session of our seminars. I'll introduce our first speaker. I actually do not need this because I've known architect Manalad years ago when he was teaching in Polytechnic University of the Philippines. But I'll read this just the same. Architect Manalad has an extensive professional practice both as an architect and academician that spans to 20 years, from 1994 to present. He holds a master's degree in architecture, major in community architecture, and minor in housing from the University of the Philippines. He obtained his bachelor's degree in architecture from the University of Santo Tomas in 1993, within which he had been sent as an international exchange student to the University of Greenwich in Kent, England, that exposed him to British-based architecture curriculum and brought him to key cities in Europe and explored its major built environment wonders. His early exposures to international design practices has been his tool to be an effective design practitioner and academician. From 2000 to present, he is actively involved as assistant professor at the University of Santo Tomas College of Architecture, where he is currently serving as the architectural design coordinator. His position calls for him to conceptualize programs within the department and oversee its implementation to provide effective delivery of the design courses, all in its 5 levels, which is considered to be the backbone of the program. As an architect and environmental planner, he heads an independent architectural firm, JV Manalad Design, Planning, and Construction. His project involvement ranges from commercial, institutional, academic, and residential undertakings. Currently, he is heavily involved with major academic institutions in their development and modernization efforts as an architect and design consultant. May I present Architect Jonathan Manalad.
Thank you, Dean Gloria. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's an honor to present in this very prestigious gathering of architects in the country. After finding the lineup of top-notch local and international speakers for this year's NatCon, I feel very privileged and at the same time a little bit anxious whether I deserve the slot accorded to me by the organizing committee. And for that, I'd like to thank them for the trust that they have bestowed upon me. Anyway, I'll do my best to present to everyone my topic of concern in the clearest possible manner as we ready ourselves in other equally engaging topics in this year's National Convention with our theme, Empowering Architects Towards ASEAN Integration. My presentation, as well as that of Architect Annaling's presentation in the other hall, will jumpstart all discussions towards our issues and concerns pertaining to the imminent integration that we architects shall face beginning this year. May I therefore invite all of you to get involved and become engaged in all the seminar presentations, as these definitely concern all of us. Next slide. The presentation is entitled The Philippine Architecture Education Landscape. Are we ready for the ASEAN integration? Some of you might ask the relevance of the Philippine architecture education into this integration discussion and might even recon in advance that it's not timely or immaterial as the students are not yet professionals anyway. Next slide, please. The proposition of this presentation is, if there are 35,000 registered licensed architects in the Philippines at this very moment, there are about the same number of students who in a few years' time will all be part of our profession, and therefore it is necessary for us to look into their welfare now that they are still students but soon part of the Philippine architecture profession. All right, the objectives of this study. First, present the overall ASEAN integration scenario in the context of architecture education in the country. Secondly, examine the specific preparations being done by government institutions in the light of this integration phenomenon. Third, assess the readiness of the academe and the consequent contribution of the industry into the ASEAN 2015 preparations. And lastly, generate rational recommendations to reinforce the readiness of the education sector as we position ourselves into a more challenging architectural practice. All right, so I'd like to present to you the overall scenario of the Philippines and the ASEAN. The Philippines is part of Southeast Asia, which is composed of the following ASEAN countries: Brunei, Cambodia, East Timor, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and of course, the Philippines. Allow me to state the obvious, but for presentation purposes, I'd like to present to you our profile as a country. We are an archipelago of 7,107 islands, and the Philippines actually cover an area of 300,000 square kilometers. Our population as of the 2010 census is 92.33 million Filipinos, but by 2014 estimate, we are already nearing 100 million, between 99 to 100 million as of 2014. Today, the Philippines is the 7th most populated country in Asia. Our capital is Manila, and if we consider Mega Manila, considering the immediate adjacent provinces, we already have an urban area population of 24.1 million Filipinos, but the city core itself has 11.55 million. And for this, we are considered already the 4th biggest mega city according to world ranking. In the slide, I'm showing to you the major ASEAN cities by population, but not necessarily by density. If you try to look at the screen, Metro Manila is already nearing 12 million. And these are the key cities that we are being compared to as far as the competition for the ASEAN integration is concerned, together with Jakarta, Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh, down to Vientiane. Our educational landscape. I'd like to present to you the profile of our higher education. We have 1,619 institutions of higher education registered in the Philippines, which has about 1,443 or 89% in the private sector. 2.4 million students are enrolled in post-secondary education, of whom 66% were in the private sector. There are 111 chartered state universities and colleges with 271 satellite campuses. We have 50 local universities and colleges, 9 other government schools for technical, vocational, and education training institutions offering higher education programs, and we have 5 special institutions mainly providing training in areas such as military science and national defense. The Bali Concord II of 2003 has defined the 3 pillars of ASEAN 2015. Political and security cooperation is the first pillar, economic cooperation is the second pillar, and the third pillar is socio-cultural cooperation. These are closely intertwined and mutually reinforcing for the purpose of ensuring durable peace, stability, and shared prosperity in the region. As the country embarks on this challenging journey, it is necessary to determine our level of readiness as far as education is concerned. Education, as one of the components of the third pillar, it plays a key role in the success of the regional cooperation effort among the member nations as they recognize the crucial role of higher education in our regional development. Allow me to present a short video of the ASEAN community.
and member states, ASEAN is one of the most diverse, fast-moving and competitive regions in the world. These 7 insights show why. If ASEAN were a single country, it would be the 7th largest in the world. And it's on track to be the 4th largest economy by 2050. With a population greater than Europe, it has the 3rd largest labour force in the world. 67 million households are currently part of the consuming class. This could double to 125 million by 2025. And ASEAN member states are collectively home to the world's 2nd largest community of Facebook users. Intra-regional trade, as a share of the economy, is less than half that of NAFTA and the EU. This could deepen significantly with the ASEAN Economic Community. The AEC aims to boost regional trade and production, delivering freer movement of goods, services, skilled labour and capital. ASEAN includes 227 of the world's companies with more than $1 billion in revenues, or 3% of the world's total. Government debt is under 50% of GDP, far lower than the 90% share in the United Kingdom or 105% in the United States. ASEAN is the 4th largest exporting region in the world, trailing only the EU, the USA and China. ASEAN is a diverse group. The difference in average incomes over the member states is 7 times that of the EU. By sharing a common focus on jobs and prosperity, and by creating a seamless regional market and production base, ASEAN could prove to be the case in which the whole actually does exceed the sum of its parts.
All right. After giving you a short video of the possibilities in the ASEAN 2015, I'd like to give you some information about the 2015 action plan for the Philippine higher education. Rising from the ASEAN Vision 2020, the ASEAN Economic Community 2015 has been set as one of the priorities of the member states, especially now that its commencement is imminent. The Philippines, for its own preparation, has provided equal amount of focus to education through the Department of Education, DepEd, Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, TESDA, and the Commission on Higher Education, CHED, who are all at the forefront on moving in accordance with what the integration demands. One of the critical roles of the higher education institutions is to carefully study the benefits and drawbacks, if there are, of the said regional integration. Part of the analysis are matters such as, number 1, greater competition in goods and services, especially in terms of employment. Secondly, our qualifications, comparing it with the regional and global qualifications. And third, the impact of the paradigm shift in the different higher education institutions. You might be wondering why the architects are so concerned about this ASEAN integration thing. This is the reason behind this. No? We recognize the 7 professional disciplines that are initially covered in the MRA, or the Mutual Recognition Agreement. These are the following: architecture, tourism, nursing, engineering, surveying, dental practice, and accountancy. Tayo po yung unang 7 professions na tatamaan ng integration. These are priority competencies that the academic institutions in our country produce, which would directly be involved under the said initial run of the MRA. The role of education under this particular facet of the regional integration is to develop an ASEAN competency-based occupational standards for benchmarking in connection with the mutual recognition through the ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework, or AQRF, where the qualifications for cross-border skills are being matched through the quality assurance or QA. The UNESCO Regional Report of Asia and the Pacific defines quality assurance in higher education as the systematic management and assessment procedures to monitor performance of higher education institutions. Quality considers all aspects of education, from teaching and academic study programs, research and scholarship, staffing, students, infrastructure and facilities, services to the community and the academic environment. Internal self-evaluation and external review conducted openly by independent specialists, if possible, with the international expertise, are vital for the enhancing quality. CHED, or the Commission on Higher Education, has come up with a specific action plan to serve as framework to be used by the tertiary educational community. This is the Philippine Higher Education Reform Agenda, which includes the following important strategies: interagency development of the Philippine Qualifications Framework, or the PQF, the issuance and application of CHED Memorandum Order, or CMO number 46 series of 2012, or the shift to learner outcomes-based qualifications in the different disciplines, the revision of the general education curriculum, the review of graduate education and transnational programs, the close collaboration with industry for specific competencies, and the active participation in the development of different networks and frameworks. Currently, the CHED is working on the 2015-2020 Higher Education Strategy and Action Plan. Based from the report provided by the International Affairs Group of CHED, the reasons for developing such action plan are the following. First, presence of compelling need to ensure that the country benefits from the integration process. Second, the changes economic integration will bring to the way we deliver higher education. And third, the Philippines' need for concrete and deliberate strategies to catch up as the country lags behind some ASEAN neighbors in the quality of higher education and higher education systems. Fourth, the imperative to determine strategies for participation in the ASEAN Economic Community initiatives for higher education aligned with the national strategy. And lastly, the importance of consolidating and enhancing present higher education reforms in the context of the AEC. Now let's try to focus a little bit more detailed, and this time I would like you to listen to the Philippine architecture education landscape. The subject of this presentation is the question of readiness of the Philippine architecture education as we enter the ASEAN integration. I have laid down the predicate on the country's tertiary profile and the specific action plan for our higher education. Let us now zero in on the architecture education landscape. We have BS Architecture in the Philippines. It is a 5-year college degree intended for people who wish to pursue a career in architecture. I'm sure we know all of this, no? BS in Architecture curriculum comprises of CHED-mandated general education courses, technical courses in mathematics, science, and basic engineering, and professional architecture courses as prescribed by PR BOA. Currently, this actually surprised me when I did my research. No? Currently, there are 99 schools of architecture throughout the country, and 19 of which are in the NCR. So, if randomly I'll be asked about how many architecture schools I know in the country, I'd be able to easily give 10, but not more than 20. But based on the information provided by CHED, we have 99 schools of architecture. Next slide. One of the most pressing concerns is about the readiness of the education sector in this ASEAN linkage. The questions are, is the Philippine Architecture Education Program ready for this daunting challenge? Second, is our new curriculum designed to provide the necessary knowledge, skills, and values needed to integrate with our ASEAN neighbors? Third, are the architecture educators equally equipped to prepare our students to become globally competent next-generation Filipino architects. This study has utilized a number of means in order to search for the answers to the concerns about the architecture education's readiness. Here in the slides, I'd like to show you the way or the manner in which I have done this very short research. Actually, the research just spanned about 2 months because particularly I wanted to present this in the National Convention as the slice of ASEAN integration challenge, no? And I did the research in the following manner. I did some studies on the government, in the academe, and in the industry. So for the government, I did some research on documents from CHED and the PRC, and I've interviewed some subject matter experts regarding the topics of the preparation of the government. For the academe, I did an online survey, and again, likewise interviewed some experts in the academe through the CODHASP, or the Councils of Deans and Heads of Architecture Schools in the Philippines, and did some studies also on the industry, now represented by United Architects of the Philippines, through again another interview of the SME and my personal direct observation as one of its corporate members. One document that was analyzed for this study was the CHED Strategic Plan for 2011-2016, which aims to attain inclusive growth and sustainable development through the formation of high-level human resource and generation, adaptation, and transfer of knowledge and technology for national development and global competitiveness. The overall key in securing the readiness of our architecture education for the ASEAN 2015 is a sound framework coming from the Commission on Higher Education. They have proactively responded to this call through the formulation of the said strategic plan. The 21st century skills. Probably some of you might have heard or have become familiar already with the phrase 21st century skills. This is very important in the ASEAN integration, particularly because the 21st century skills is a global set of skills necessary in order for us to develop the next generation leaders, professionals, and particularly in our field, architects. The term 21st century skills is considered to be the anchorage point of the future of the classroom. But what exactly is it, and what is its role in the academic environment? In essence, they are the skills that our architecture students will need to prepare them for their future. The basis for the CHED Memorandum Order 46 series of 2012 entitled Policy Standard to Enhance Quality Assurance in the Philippine Higher Education through an outcomes-based and typology-based quality assurance. One of the major targets of the agency is the rationalization of the higher education institutions and programs, wherein one of the key targets is for the curricula that will be developed and implemented to integrate 21st century skills and other competencies responsive to labor market needs, both local and international, as to the requirements of national development. Industry representatives shall be involved in all CHED technical panels or technical committees that review and develop the curricula. So these are the 21st century skills. For us to be able to easily remember them, they are divided into 3 L's: learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills. Learning skills, we have critical thinking, creative thinking, collaborating, communicating. For literacy skills, we have information literacy, media literacy, and technology literacy. For life skills, we aim to develop our students and the future architects to be flexible, with social skills, with leadership, with initiative, and with productivity. allow me to present, the concept of 21st century education. Okay, the short video says basically that we cannot expect students to be 21st century graduates if we are 20th century teachers. So we need innovations and a lot of creativity in our delivery of our classroom engagement with the students because it is already the 21st century and we are trying to create specific competencies for them. Next slide. Okay. Another document that was provided by CHED for this presentation is the soon-to-be launched updated curriculum, which is aligned to outcomes-based education. It is a 42-pager semi-final draft of the new curriculum. It's semi-final because according to yesterday's meeting, if any one of you would like to still comment or would like to provide additional insights for its completion, you are all welcome to approach the technical panel, and they would be more than willing to entertain your suggestions or queries regarding the soon-to-be implemented new curriculum. The highlights of the new curriculum are as follows. There will be 218 credit units with general education and technical courses. There will be 13 units of mathematics, 9 units of natural sciences, 18 units of basic engineering courses, 44 professional courses, totaling 115 units. There will be 3 specialization courses, totaling 9 units, and we are still maintaining the 3-unit correlation course. The Professional Regulation Commission, meanwhile, is the lead institution that has formulated specific initiatives which include, among others, the establishment of a quality assurance system for the Philippine qualifications framework. The table on the screen establishes the educational levels one must attain in order to qualify to a specific PQF level, which is correspondingly matched with the ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework, or the AQRF. By the way, this will be discussed in tomorrow's presentation of the Honorable Dr. Jose Cueto of the PRC. So Dr. Cueto will be discussing in details the PQF, the AQRF. But for the purpose of highlighting it in this presentation, I just chose one slide, which is the PQF, which is actually a table which shows us the 8 levels of qualifications, eight qualifications level that we are supposed to achieve in the ASEAN integration. Okay? Dito po sa slide na ito, you could see that there is the leftmost level, which is basic education. If you're done with grade 12 in the K-12 basic ed, you have already reached level 2. If you proceed in college in the rightmost level, you will finish your baccalaureate degree, you will immediately jump to level 6. Level 7 if you have master's degree, and level 8 if you have PhD or other postdoctoral studies. What is interesting about this PQF level is we are now highlighting the importance of technical vocational courses. That means we are strengthening TESDA in all of its program, because we are now in the idea that we are not just supposed to impose upon our sons and daughters that immediately after high school or year 12, you are supposed to automatically go to college. Because in the ASEAN integration, there are a lot of jobs which does not match the skills of our graduates. And therefore, these jobs abroad, when we consider cross-border practice, there are those that are within the program of TESDA. And therefore, hindi po second-rate yung TESDA sa magiging sitwasyon sa ASEAN integration. Kung hindi, kapartner po ang TESDA for those who opt not to proceed with the baccalaureate studies, no, but instead concentrate in the technical vocational programs. All right. Part of the other study that I showed you earlier is my coordination with CODHAS for another aspect to ask to check the readiness of our architecture education. CODHAS, or the Council of Deans and Heads of Architecture Schools in the Philippines, have provided insights about their take on the ASEAN integration in the context of our local architecture education, particularly on the following items: awareness of the ASEAN integration, knowledge of the relationship between ASEAN 2015 and OBE, and the readiness to implement the OBE. Ladies and gentlemen, I did a very short, and I have to say it's an informal survey. I did it online. The participant of the survey must be a CODHAS member, meaning you have to be the dean or the head of the architecture school in your school. And this is through online means. And anonymity is protected because ako mismo, I will not be able to know who the respondents were. So the intention of this is to basically to check the readiness of the schools. And the best person to represent the school is its head. So I did a survey, and I'd like to share to you the result. There were 10 questions, but I will not deal on them. I'll just be dealing on 3 items. Are you familiar with the ASEAN 2015 program? Yes is 86%. And sad to say, there were 14% who said they are not familiar with the ASEAN 2015. This is quite sad because they are supposed to be the head. And the simple question of, are you familiar? And as honestly as possible, they said they are not really that familiar. The survey also asked whether they are aware of any specific government program that prepares the students to the ASEAN integration. One respondent has clearly laid out a very remarkable response. And this is, I'm quite happy about this feedback. And I quote, "There's a need in order to keep them abreast of the standard skills, knowledge, and competencies in accordance with the scope of the local and ASEAN practice of architecture. This could be done through the revision of the curriculum, enhancing and infusion of new teaching materials to suit the need for ASEAN integration, and conduct of training and the conduct of trainings and seminars for architecture educators. The survey's main point of concern was the architecture schools heads' cognizance of the direct relationship between ASEAN integration and the outcomes-based education. Doon po wala po sa academe, gusto ko po itong ipaliwanag ng maikling-maikli lamang po. OBE po ang karaniwang terminology ginagamit sa education sector ngayon because according to CHED, yung outcomes-based education mode ang kailangan para ma-develop po natin yung 21st century skills ng mga future architects. So kung mayroon po kayong colleague na architect na nagtuturo, malamang po familiar siya sa terminology OBE or outcomes-based education. Now, another response that was very favorable was, according to one of the respondents, he or she said, "This is the baseline standard to which our graduates will have competencies to be competitive with other ASEAN nations and the global market, which is the ASEAN 2015's goal." The seventh question was, do you see any direct relationship between OBE and the ASEAN integration? 50% said yes, 29% said no. So ano pong implication nito? Probably, I am just assuming, no, because there were short answers, and for this particular question, they were just asked to say yes or no. The essence in the success of the implementation of OBE is for the educator to know the real reason why we are doing this, and this is for the ASEAN integration, and this is not just a requirement of the school to change from other models of education into outcomes-based. So the question whether you see any direct relationship between ASEAN integration and OBE is very important, because we will find out whether the head of the school really knows kung the implementation would be okay, because the underlying reason behind the OBE conversion of the syllabus is understood by the head. Okay? So unfortunately, the 29% said they do not see any direct relationship. Next, please give an accurate rating of your readiness as an architecture school to shift to OBE in your architecture program. 21% said very good, we are very much ready. All the administrators and faculty members have been trained, and we are all adept to the OBE system. 21% said good, readiness is average. There were seminars conducted about OBE, but we need to get exposed more to the OBE system. 36% said needs improvement. Only a very limited seminar or material was provided, and our admin and faculty are not ready to implement OBE. And sad to say, 7% said poor, not ready at all. There were no trainings or materials provided for the OBE implementation. Yung others, they just skipped, so it fell under others. So ito pong tanong na to is a very simple and direct questions about the self-assessment of each schools as far as their readiness. And it's okay if we have 21% saying very good, but we are also concerned about the 36% who said needs improvement, because 2015 is integration, which is at the last month of this year, is about to start, and we are not yet ready. I've also asked UAP to represent the industry through a very respected resource person, Architect Ted Inocencio, FUAP, the Executive Director for Commission on Education. And I'd like to hear the response of the industry to the United Architects of the Philippines, the Integrated Accredited Professional Organization of Architects. The industry response through UAP, I have learned a lot from my interview with Architect Inocencio, and he said there are three major things the Commission on Education of UAP is busy with, and these are the Leadership in Education Assistance Program, which is very good, the Annual Conference on Architectural Research and Education, or ACARE, and the Architects Regional Council Asia, or ARC-Asia. The Leadership in Education Assistance Program is a financial assistance for UAP members in the academe pursuing further studies. UAP will be sponsoring 5 scholars from North Luzon, 5 scholars from South Luzon, 5 from the Visayas, and 5 from Mindanao. I was very impressed with this program because, of course, we need them. We need to encourage architects in the education sector to further their studies because it's a requirement. Also, we have the participation of UAP in the ACARE, or the Annual Conference on Architectural Research and Education. ACARE generally aims to encourage practicing architects and academic researchers to get involved in the discussion on the issues and current challenges on the architecture profession. It is now on its 14th year. UAP's participation is by supporting the endeavors of ACARE and providing financial assistance in its annual conferences, which is very, very good. Next, the ARC-Asia. The Architects Regional Council Asia Committee on Architectural Education pushes for the research collaboration with other member countries. It also aims to foster among the up-and-coming generation of architects in the region a better understanding of each other's countries and their contemporary conditions and problems. We have a representation in the ARC-Asia, and we encourage our students to participate in its international programs. In conclusion, for the government, I've seen highly substantial systems are in place. There are very impressive framework that has been prepared in order to equip professionals and future professionals to compete internationally. However, national policies and framework needs more exposure to reach the grassroots. Kasi po, ang nakita ko po ay tayo pong may participation sa convention na ito. We know about all these issues, but let's say we have 3,000 delegates, for example, but there are 35,000 architects. So, kailangan po massive yung information campaign. Next, in the academe, a strong institutionalized organization of deans and heads of architectural schools are in place. Very good. Mutual respect among members are manifested. The interest to participate in national and local issues concerning architecture education is very, very evident. However, there is a need to align with fellow heads in order for all members to become fully aware of the ASEAN setup and its effect on education. For the industry, UAP, as the accredited professional organization, has the capability to support worthy undertakings to help the architecture education community. Initiatives and projects are very commendable. A good number of active members are in the academe, and networking is easily managed. However, a need for a more mass-based endeavors apart from projects that caters to a limited few is necessary. Recommendations for the government: systematize a massive information campaign about the well-prepared framework. Maganda po ang framework ng gobyerno natin, no? CHED, PRC, kompletong-kompleto na po, ready na po tayo. But we need a massive information campaign. Set up, I would suggest to probably set up hotlines for public inquiries and create fully operational online reference or website, particularly for the ASEAN 2015 concerns. For the academe, alignment of concepts about ASEAN, OBE, and its relationship is very, very necessary. There must be nationwide workshops or write shops on OBE. There must be collaboration among schools in order to harness their fellow architects' teaching pedagogies, mentoring, communication, and management skills. And we need to keep up the impressive networking among heads of the architecture schools in the country. For the industry, assist architect members in the academe through capability seminars where more members will benefit. Launch nationwide needs assessment for architects in the academe to determine the other possible assistance the national organization can offer its members. It cannot be an accurate conclusion that we are not totally ready, as there have been serious and substantial initiatives to service the Philippine architecture education sector. But it cannot be denied that there are more works to do in order for the local architecture education to be fully ready for the imminent integration. Now, is the architecture education ready for the ASEAN integration? My assessment is we are getting there. I cannot say no, I cannot say totally yes, but we are there, we are getting there. Let's help the profession by helping the new breed of architects become globally competitive in the same effort that we are helping ourselves as professionals. I wish to inform all of you, my dear colleagues, that this presentation was born out of my earnest desire to contribute in my own little way in the promotion of quality architecture education, having spent many years in the academe. This 2015, I celebrate my 20th year mentoring students of the profession. With all modesty, the dedication is so intense that I have to admit that at various points in my stay in the university, my professional career has sometimes been set only as second priority. Abraham Lincoln once said, "He has a right to criticize who has a heart to help." So, in the spirit of volunteerism, I'm willing to help the schools, especially in the provinces, in their struggle to redesign their syllabi into outcomes-based education, being a certified OBE trainer by UST. Our national president, Beth Regala, has called us to empower, equip, and enjoin in the furtherance of our goals. And I guess this is my own personal contribution to this call. As I end this presentation, I'd like to share an excerpt of the message from our good colleague who sent an open letter to our architecture students that was posted online, and I quote, "Ang tagumpay ng ating laban para sa pagpapalakas at pagtatanggol ng ating propesyon ay hindi lamang trabaho ng liderato ng UAP. Ito ay tungkulin ng lahat ng arkitektong Pilipino, mga archi students at archi graduates, kaya't pagtulong-tulungan natin ito." Thank you very much. Next slide. And next slide. All right, for a copy of this presentation, you may just scan the QR code and I can share to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joey.